Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. It's been said that we create our own reality. The thoughts we have become our universe. Interesting. That could go well. That could go not so well. Depends on what you're thinking. It all comes down to one thing, manifestation. We're going to talk about that today. Some of the principles of it, what we can do to more effectively get the things we want, make our dreams come true. She has deep insight on this and so much more. Every time we get together, I didn't even know we were talking about manifesting today. So she just showed up. And you know what? I didn't even know that was in her wheelhouse. She is somebody who can help you find your happiness. She coaches. She has insight. She has amazing books as well. Marilyn Horowitz back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as always. You're really interesting to talk to.
You too. And I this, do I believe in manifestation? Well, here's my vision board. And it's due for an upgrade. You know, some of the things on there, hey, they'll be on the next one, but maybe just different priorities. We'll say that. So do you believe that it is possible to create your reality just by what you think?
I have a very dark view, which is that you are creating your reality. And the problem is not that you can't get what you want, it's that you have what you want. And the problem is with what you want. And that's where the whole thing that I talk about how we have this part of our brain called the habenula. There's an actual part of our brain that processes our experiences of defeat and failure as, let's make sure they don't happen again. Therefore, you will not try to do anything again. And so we're very much the victims of our biology, as I say frequently, much to people's dismay. And the cure for that is incredibly simple. It's not easy, but it's incredibly simple. The cure is that you have to understand that there's certain words that trigger you and trigger off that part of your brain and just shut you down. I mean, this is not news. It's just applied. When you apply, it's different. So I know for myself that very often when I do something well, I'm okay, and then I panic and I can't do it. Why? Because my habenula kicks in and says, well, you did it once this time, but you might not succeed next time. So why don't you just rest on your laurels and not try? A lot of people have that, right? Or you have a plan, you're going to start exercising every day or whatever, and you don't do it. Well, why don't you do it? It's because your habenula doesn't want you to fail since you've tried that routine and it doesn't work. So you have to trick yourself by finding a way to reframe everything so it's not a failure. It's a huge operation. So the real way to manifest is defensively, by making sure that you don't frame things in this certain way. Things can go badly. It's a particular thing that sets you off. So the problem is that most of us live inside a box of all of our misapplied perceptions of what we've done. When you have low self-esteem, that's a perfect description of a large version. And so we naturally avoid doing those things, and it's biological because, again, the biological imperative does not distinguish whether you're putting your hand on a hot stove or you're trying to practice for a marathon. It doesn't know. And so that's really where people get stuck with the manifesting stuff. So your mind knows that you want a vintage Mustang, with white upholstery. Right, but the part of you that's going to get it for you doesn't understand those details. It's good to put them down because it generates the feeling, but people make the mistake of thinking that whatever they write down, they're going to manifest exactly. And the problem is that whole part of your brain and the world does not necessarily speak English. It speaks a universal language, which is of frequency. And frequency is not the same as feelings. That's the big trick here. That's the big interesting thing to check on. So really, the Abraham Hicks people were right. I loved them for years. I listened to Esther and Abraham and Jerry until Jerry died, and then the whole thing got a little too popular for me. It was a little too general, but before that, wild stuff. But the basic idea is that you have to trick yourself into feeling a certain way. And then the longer you can stay in a state where you are in a good frequency, where you're receptive, the more all the unconscious parts of you help direct you towards that thing that you want to manifest. So it's not as simple as a vision board, though vision boards are great because they make you feel a certain way. I find anything like a vision board, it instantly makes me feel defeated. So I don't do them. I have the opposite reaction.
No worries. And I don't live by the vision board. It's just an extension of what's going on in your mind.
No, it's good. It's good.
can bring you back there, and especially if it's in front of you all the time, it's going to keep it. It's going to keep your goals, your dreams top of mind. But let's go back to that vintage Mustang. So let's say you want a car like that. Would you think about it, call it, dream about it? I'm in that car right now. I'm driving. Hey, by the way, it's convertible, so I got the top down. I feel the air blowing through.
Of course, I can see you.
And I'll just wait to somebody on the corner. I've got music.
Yeah. Your arm on the seat. You're driving one hand.
Exactly. I've got music from the '70s cranking there. Oh, my dog's in the front seat. Finally trained him not to jump out.
Good vibration by the Beach Boys, right?
It could be. And I smell the leather too on those seats. Like I feel it. I feel it inside. It's real. Is that all of what we should be doing? Not all of it, but that's what we should be doing in terms of manifesting, if you will, those things that we want.
Well, yeah, but there's a catch, and it's a very important catch. The problem is that a lot of times, because you have this part of your brain that's failure, that's trying to protect you from failure, that kind of psychology never works for me because my brain just goes, well, you don't have it yet, do you? In other words, it's a question. You have to understand your own mind. Now, I just come from this very overachieving family where, if you got an A, why did you get an A plus? And it was a character failure. You know what I mean? It was absolutely, you were bad. It wasn't that you did something, you made a mistake. You were bad. So everything was already the way. So I find that I have to be very careful. And so that's why I'm saying for me, I might think of the Mustang, but I'm going to give myself a disclaimer. Like at the beginning of my visualization, I'm going to say, I know that this is how what I want is manifesting, but give me what the feeling is, not the thing I'm vibing for, because your chances of failure are always 50-50, right? Whereas if you just go, I want to feel that good, I want to feel the way I feel as if I were, I can do that. I don't even like to drive, but I can.
Me too.
I'm like in that Mustang with you right now,
Hey, I get what you're saying about that feeling. Like I went to, took myself on vacation last year. First time I ever went alone. Went on an island. I called it a Steve retreat. Rest, relaxation, reflection. The feeling I had was unlike anything I've ever felt. After I calmed down from the New York hustle and bustle,
sure,
I was grounded. I've got a plastic chair, put it on the hill. And I mean, the ocean was 50 feet away. And I sat there and I just stared all day and I just thought and I listened to songs and just like, it was wonderful, life changing so much. In fact, I went back 3 months later because it was cheap. But that feeling I had, I can go back there in my mind right now. And it's not about being in a tropical location. It's the feeling that came from it. And it like explodes my heart. Like, it's just like, oh, wonderful peace. And it's me. I finally, I just found me in a big way. I can go back to that feeling in a second. And maybe that, and here's where I'm going with that. You want the Mustang, the vintage Mustang. Yeah. Do you really want the car, or do you want the feeling that comes from having that car? And is it possible, if you're manifesting that feeling, something else might show up given to you by the universe that gave you that feeling? You think, I want that car. It's cool. I'm going to look good. I always wanted, a vintage vehicle. Maybe it's not the vehicle. Maybe you want something. You want that feeling, something to give you that feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But sometimes you also want the stuff. And that's where you
take a look at the vision board. Wait, there's a car on it.
I saw it.
So, yes, I get it. Yes, but I'm focusing on the feeling because I believe what you're saying here is that's where it's at, the feeling.
Well, the idea is, I give these biweekly webinars, and this week we had about 10 people, and we're working on helping people get better writing schedules. And my premise is very unusual, which is that we take advice from people who lived in the 20th century and who want us to do things like, put aside 2 hours to write and so on and so forth. And most of us can't, because the phone's there and people are there, and life is more, let's say life occurs more as a mosaic, than a landscape, right? And so I have been helping people do things like dictate into their phone when they have 5 minutes. In other words, finding a different, because my experience, like you, is that once you have that place inside you, you can go there any second. You don't have to do a writing exercise. If you're in that, you can stop at a stoplight and click your phone on and go. And as they climb the mountain with their beach chair, and so the whole concept behind the frequency idea is that the whole self-help movement is predicated on our, focusing on our thoughts, and we have to work at such a tiny granular level. And it's not that we don't have to, but you see, you're yawning as soon as I say tiny and granular.
No,
So
I'm not. I am thinking about, I'm still stuck on the feeling.
Yeah.
And the frequency is
the frequency. That's what I'm going to say. So it's not so much like, for me, I'm a word person, right? So when I was a tiny person, I used to get very upset when people talked about men in a general way. So you'd say, well, it's good to be a man when you grow up and do this, or in the Bible, I was in Hebrew school, they'd say, brotherhood. And I went through all the family Haggadahs and I changed everything. So it was peoplehood. I mean, I would not tolerate, this has nothing to do with feminism. This has to do with my own frequency. And one of my great accomplishments in my mind was I wrote a very passionate editorial letter that got me into a lot of trouble in a magazine years ago. And the part that I enjoyed the most was they couldn't figure out what gender I was because I signed it Marilyn Horowitz. And that made my week, my month. And this is just, it's just because I'm sensitive. Because, in the Jewish religion, women have a very secondary position. And it's sugar coated and it's a bunch of BS. And by the time I could walk, I was like, no, ain't doing this. So that's something. So I'm saying, so for me, if I was doing some kind of visualization and the word brotherhood came up, it would just shut me right down. So you do have to be a bit of a wordsmith for yourself. So, you want to make sure you don't hit words that do that to you. But to your point, having the feeling, the more time you spend in that feeling, the more likely you are to get everything. And really, honestly, if you can stay in that feeling, you've got everything. Right? I mean, it's one of those paradoxes. And so I think that the practical secret, the reason I mentioned the frequency thing versus the monitoring your thoughts thing, is it's very easy to get yourself into a happy frequency. You look at your cat, you walk your dog. For you and me, you put on a song. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Music, boom.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And or you use someone's voice that you like or whatever. And the idea that you focus your attention on shaping what you're projecting as your sort of auric. Think of the universe as a gigantic quilt, and we're a little square on it. And the frequency is out here. If you want to draw more of it, it makes sense that you'd want to shine a little bit, right? You want to be more literally attractive. And so this idea that I've been using is just to have and I've taught this for years in the form of having people have touchstones. You've done the hug with me, so you do the hug. I love you, Steve. We'll always be together. We'll always be safe. We are enough. We demand and expect better. And then in that moment when you're quiet, it's like when you come out of sleep. In that second when you're connected, boom, that's when you come up with your image that's going to make you happy. And that image goes very deeply into your neocortex, and it goes way, way down into these parts, and it bypasses all the negative stuff, and it goes right in. And so then now you start to build touchstones. So for me, I love soft ice cream. And I did this as an experiment where I would teach I taught this a lot. And every time I teach it, they'd say, okay, now think of the thing that makes you happy. And I decided that I would try an experiment where every time it was a soft vanilla cone with a different topping. And I wanted to see how that worked for me. Now, obviously, getting an ice cream cone with topping in the winter is kind of hard, but otherwise it's not a big deal, right? But the idea that becomes my touchstones means that I don't even need to do the hug. I don't need to think about anything. I just need to think of a cone. And the mind is very suggestible. So the moment I think of that cone, I go back into that frequency. So it becomes a physical application. So if you like the Mustang thing we just did, when you do your next vision board, make sure there's a red Mustang with white upholstery, and see if you don't start to be able to have a more more like a song, like it's chapter and verses. It's not just a line from a song. If that makes sense.
This sounds similar to something I heard, the 17-second rule.
Yeah, that's Abraham Hicks.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's Abraham Hicks. They changed it to 21 seconds, later.
I ain't got time for that. But essentially, it's you think of something that makes you happy. It could be a vacation, whatever, and hold that thought for 17 or 21 seconds, and you'll stay there and try and stay there as much as you can. of raising up your vibration. Who was that again? Abraham
Yeah,
Hicks?
that's it. That's Esther and Jerry Hicks. That's Abraham Hicks.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's from them 17 seconds.
Well, you know what? I believed it, but I do it now. And vacation. That is my happy spot. There's even a song I listened to that was inspirational, and there's messages in the song. It's an Eric Clapton song. And I listened to it.
You mentioned that song. What was the name of that song again?
Let It Grow. Let It Grow.
Let It Grow. Yeah, that was great. That's great.
And that's where it came from. I was just sitting there. I was like, I'm going to play that again. I'm going to play that again. I'm going to play that again. I couldn't stop. There was something about it, and I believe it showed up, but it's also telling me something, or me telling me something. And it's about crossroads, making a decision. How do you do that?
Sure.
What are some of the things that we should do to manifest, and some of the things that we shouldn't? For example, never come from a place of lack, where when's a car showing up? Like, really? I've been doing it. Right away, you're derailing the process and bringing the vibration down because you're coming from a place of lack. Things like that. Anything that you could share?
Yeah, but go back to that little piece of your brain that we would all like to have removed, which is called the habenula. It's right next to your pineal gland, actually in the middle of your head. It says, no, you really can't want that. You're going to fail. Don't even try. And the problem is that 90% of all this positivity triggers that. So it pushes us further into lack, because if you say, like, every time I hear I was listening last night, it said, you will start to attract wealth. And I just went, I've got to turn this thing off. I am wealthy. I don't need this shit, But people think that they have to do that. And what they're doing is they're reinforcing their scarcity mentality. And forgive my French. You can bleep it out if you want to. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're real. We're not governed by the FCC. No worries.
That's good. That's good. Well, I think it's very important for grown-ups to do a little swearing because it grounds you.
Mm-hmm. And it's authentic. I mean, like, who cares? It's an expression. It's an expression.
But I want to answer your question very directly. So the trick is to do this, but not flip the failure switch, which says, "Oh no, never have it." It's like, you say, "Okay, I want $1 million by next week." Okay, so clearly, most of us, some part is going to go, "Yeah, really, that's not possible." But if you say, I would like to learn some techniques that will allow me to create, other flows of income, then that same part of you sits up and goes, oh, I don't smell any failure in there. I don't smell any lack. I don't. So, one of the things that if you Esther's great about this, Esther Hicks, but in general, the idea is that you need to not step on that sore toe of all the things you imagine you've already failed at.
And and thank you. I'm right in line with that. Why limit yourself? I heard, add these two words. Let's say you want $10 million, whatever it is, or you want as you said, the means to bring in the abundance you're looking for, but add or better. Don't limit. Or better.
Absolutely. Or better. That goes back to Jose Silva in 1984. It was the first person to really popularize this kind of meditation study. He's a fascinating guy. But absolutely. But the main thing is to understand that you will set yourself off, and when you do that, the backlash is severe, because the habenula, which it's part of your biological. In other words, this is not that stuff about your inner critic. That's all well and good, but that's not what's creating the problem. What's creating the problem is you have a physical, biological part of you that is trying to keep you safe. And by default, there are three modes of that. When you're threatened, right? There's freeze, flight, or fight. Mm-hmm. And what happens is the habenula puts you in freeze. And what happens is then you suddenly feel really bad later, and you don't know why, and you're not motivated, and you stop doing that exercise program or whatever you're doing. And it's because the neurobiology has come in and said, well, that's dangerous. I think it's better if you don't do anything. And this is not well understood yet, but once it is, I think there will be a revolution in how people talk to themselves.
Wow. Because if you don't do anything, you didn't really fail. Because if you do something, let's say that's go to the gym, work out. Well, I want to work out 4 times this week and at least 30 minutes of cardio each session, plus weightlifting. But if I won't do it. I just won't do it. Well, I didn't fail.
But that's why. But I'm saying, that's why, because there's a part of you that's trying to keep you safe in case you fail. See, it's like that. So it's what you shouldn't do if you're going to not do something is be very, very soft. Don't be hard on yourself when you're trying to be positive. In other words, be in my way of thinking, be as general as possible about things so that you have the opportunity. So you instead of saying I'm going to work out 3 times a week and do 30 minutes of cardio, say I'm going to actively pursue my health in a new and interesting way, and find that feeling. And then what happens is you start to, if you're human, you're going to start to imagine yourself. You're going to see yourself on the treadmill. You don't have to do any work. Then you're holding a space. Suddenly you have these visions of yourself doing this, and then you because you're not triggering your failure mechanism that's trying to keep you safe. You're opening the possibility so that all these other systems, of which you have 4 or 5, can come online and direct you.
It's like an open-ended sentence. You just put it out there.
Perfect.
and you fill in the blanks. Your mind actually fills in the blanks from that point. Interesting. Because this is reverse thinking that many of us have about manifesting, in that you need to be specific. You got to write it down. You got to believe that it's already here. All of these things. But your brain is going to say BS. It's going to say it's not attainable.
Say you didn't succeed last time. We better not try. That's much more dangerous if people don't understand this. It's nothing to do with their motivation or their inner critic. It's none of this nonsense. It is because your biological imperative is trying to keep you safe. It's much worse.
and it's why we're here. So there's the good part. We back to cave people time, where you didn't go outside the cave because you had a feeling, an intuition that there's a pterodactyl flying out there, and it kept you safe. Unfortunately, here we are, and that's keeping you from your dreams because it's trying to still keep you safe.
Well, that's the big thing. One of the things that I enjoyed very much when I took the Landmark Forum was that one of Werner Erhard's great sayings is, the reason that people don't change is because your biological imperative says, when you got this far, what do you want to be happy for?
Right. Right. Yeah. You're alive. Things are good, right?
Yeah. It's like don't push your luck.
Yeah. Things would be better in that vintage Mustang. Marilyn, thank you. Thank you for the insight here. A totally different approach to manifesting, but addresses where we go wrong with that, where our minds go wrong with that. You have some great books. You have the Marilyn Initiative. So many things that you offer to help people find happiness. Best way to connect with you, what's that?
Is probably to connect with me through my website, which is marilyninitiative.com. And I always offer 15 minutes of free, consulting, whether you're working on a book or one of your problems. And connect with me. And I also, as I say, I have these biweekly webinars where we do the practice of the Beyond Happiness method, which is this hug and clustering and free associating work that we do. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you for today. So much insight. And I will pick you up in about 45 minutes in the Mustang, but the top's going to stay up because it's kind of cold in New York.
I love it. Don't get caught in the
We'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.